Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Just making some coffee right now.
I just made one too.
Awesome. Let me get my video. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I see you now. Cheers.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Cheers.
take your time. I'm just setting up the thing. Just make sure everything goes okay.
Okay, hold on a second.
Sure, take your time.
Sorry, it's been so hectic trying to hook up.
Oh no worry.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's happening.
Yeah,
Crazy stuff's
you
happening.
you seem to be very busy. I mean, you probably always had been busy your whole life, but yeah.
Yeah, I try to make myself busy by doing lots of different things. But something new came up with the old team that I used to ride with, the Bones Brigade. So
Oh.
yeah, something really cool is coming together from Hollywood. So
Whoa. Think we're gonna have a scoop on the episode.
yeah, I don't know how much I can indulge, but
No, it's
it's
fine. No
it's gonna be
pressure.
really cool.
Wow. Okay, so you have your coffee. Nice. That's a Rad Dad coffee.
Yes,
I have
it's
a
my
blasting.
favorite cup. What's
Yeah,
that?
I have a blasting room cup.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my
Oh,
favorite one because it's probably my biggest mug, so I can fill as much coffee as I want in there.
yeah. So it's the morning for you, so it's perfect. And for me, it's like my second coffee of the day.
All right.
I'm very happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited. I want to focus mainly about music today, about
For
punk
sure.
rock. But I also got a lot of questions from the listeners about skateboarding, of course. So maybe if we have time, I can ask you a couple of those questions. But first, where are you now? You're in California, I think?
Yeah, I'm in Southern California. I live in Carlsbad. I moved here in 2014. Try to start a band while I was here with different people.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while for me to kind of gain some momentum as far as getting with a good group of guys that
It's
um,
hard. Mm-hmm.
it's very hard. It's a bunch of different relationships and different styles of music. And to be honest with you, with the new project that I'm doing right now with the band Urethane, I had another project a year prior to that, which I was, pretty full bore bass player for this band, and we wrote about 10 songs, but we didn't have a singer, or a name for the band, and that's kind of pretty much how Urethane formed.
Oh.
I found a singer you know, to try out for the band, and those guys didn't really care for that singer. So I'm like, well, I was really interesting, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that you don't hear what I hear. So I just told me we weren't on the same page. So I basically left that band that I was playing for a year to join with Tim, our singer, and that's how Urethane formed, pretty much.
Oh, that was one of my questions. But prior to that, back in the days, you had other bands, right? But I
Of course, yeah. I first discovered punk rock probably in the early 80s from skate parks. When I very first went to the skate parks in the late 70s, it was all about rock and roll, AC/DC, Cheap
hard
Trick,
rock,
Aerosmith.
yeah.
Yeah. And then slowly it really turned into like kind of new wave type music, like Gary Newman, the Go-Go's, the B-52s. And then all of a sudden I heard these bands called the Dead Kennedys, the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, and I just kind of fell in love with that sound. I felt like that was kind of the energy that skateboarding was producing for me, and it's something that kind of went hand in hand. So I really got into punk rock, and then I started hearing bands later on in the early '80s, like the Circle Jerks, Strokes,
Yeah. Black Flag.
Adolescence, Black Flag, TSOL, and I really got into the LA hardcore scene. And then I started venturing off and listening to the bands from the Midwest, like Minor Threat, SSD Control, so there was, a big influence in punk rock in my life. So I ended up starting a band in 1982 called The Faction. And, just a bunch of group of guys from the skate park that skated together that knew how to play instruments. And we formed a band, recorded our first 45 in 1982. And I think had only been playing bass for like 6 months, and we were in the studio in San Francisco recording our first 7-inch.
Wow. That's a good way to start.
Yeah. And then from then we made more records. We made an album. That album paid for another 45, and it just kept snowballing. And then our guitarist booked our first, US tour in 1984. And I got to get in a small van and tour the whole US and play really famous place like CBGB's back in New York, driving from California, all the way across. And in 1984, I decided I want to play guitar as well. So we became a 5-piece, and then we toured the US once again, this time with me on guitar and playing CBGB's once again, all the way down to Miami. And, it was just such a great time for me with skating and music, because I already had a professional career skateboarding.
You could do both without any problems, and it was
I had a little bit of problems with the skateboard companies. Yeah. They were kind of wondering where my focus was and what my drive was, because the band was starting to interfere with, like, maybe going on tour skating, but I was on tour with the band. So, there was sometimes a conflict of interest, but it was just another passion of mine. And so, I just stuck with it. And we ended up breaking up the Faction in 1985. And we reformed again in 1989 with a different guitarist, the skateboarder named Jeff Kendall from Indiana. He played guitar, and we recorded a few songs, broke up again. And then I started another band called Odd Man Out, which was a different type of music, more like The Mission, Love and Rockets, The Cure, that kind of mixture of sound. And I was in that band in the late 80s, which then turned into early 90s, got into a different band called Shovelhead. And that was more kind of like the grungy era of music, where, a lot of bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana were around. And so, I've been messing around with different types of bands and music and genres my whole life, to the point where I went back to like the punk rock style. We added a female singer, and I started a band in 1995 called Soda, recorded an album with them, and then eventually broke that up. And within all that time, with, starting that band in 1982 with Faction, I would do Faction reunions, all through that whole time. We would get back together and play a few shows and then break up. So it wasn't until, like, I want to say a couple years ago that I finally said stop to the Faction, no more Faction songs, and I kind of want to start a new band. And that's how this whole thing's formed. So I've been doing music my whole life.
And some listeners asked me to ask you if you got into skateboarding first or punk rock, but you kind of answered that with, you started with skateboard, but you discovered punk rock through skateboarding.
I did. Yeah, skateboarding came to me in 1976, and punk rock and music didn't really come into, to my life until the early 80s.
It's so rad because you saw like all those eras of punk rock, like the 70s, the 80s. You played in the mid 90s where skate punk was exploding everywhere, and especially in California. So
incredible. No, yeah, that's when I discovered bands like, Pennywise, No Effects, Good Riddance, Strung Out, Face to Face, Millencolin. I mean, you name it, all those 90s hardcore. And then I was on the band's Warped Tour at that time as
Yeah,
well, too.
exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
You mixed both of your passion at the time a lot.
No, it was a great time from like 1995 to about, 2005. I was on, the band's Warped Tour for, all those years, and toured with some great bands, and toured over to Europe, even up to Australia, and even getting to be on this tour with these bands who I looked up to. I got to become friends with them, and sometimes they would allow me to come on stage and play a song with them. So that was pretty awesome opportunity. Like I'd be skating the ramp, and then the band that I really liked, was playing. I'm like, hey, hold on, you guys, I'm gonna go to the stage real quick and play a song, and then come back to the demo.
Like living your best life at its top, like.
Oh yeah, the Warped Tours, early Warped Tours were amazing. Touring with No Use for a Name, MXPX. All those bands. It was awesome.
And I sorry, my English is not super good sometimes, but like both
That's
of
okay.
I would say both of the scenes, like the punk scene and the skateboard scene. So you saw an evolution. How did they mix together all these years compared to now, for example?
Well, what was kind of odd was skateboarding kind of went from like rock and roll to new wave to punk to actually kind of going into metal a little bit, and then from metal into rap. But I kind of never, and when it was getting kind of into the rap scene, it was vert skateboarding was no longer in existence, and it was mostly like street skating, and a lot of the street skaters really liked that early, rap sound. And I just kind of never really got into it, all my skate videos always included punk rock in it, and then all the other guys' videos always had rap, so I kind of stuck to my punk roots through that time. Even though I did like some rap bands, but I never really that wasn't the main focus of my music interest. So I always kind of stayed core to listening to punk rock. I even quit a band that I was in because the band Shovelhead that I was in, that was more kind of grungy. I played that type of music, but I would on the side, I would just listen to all those punk bands, and then so I kind of looked at, I was like, why am I playing this style of music? But this is the kind of music I listen to, it was just, I don't know. So I actually ended up quitting that band in the early 90s.
You wanted to stay authentic with like what you
pretty much.
And did you have any fights, quote unquote, with other skateboarders when you about music? Like, punk is the best style. No, hip hop is. Did you have like kind of those like teenage?
I did actually. And what's funny is I did have I always remember this one fight I had, and it was actually with the singer for The Faction. Oh. I remember when and we would skate, because I had a ramp in my backyard, so we would skate, and then after we skate, we'd go into my house where the band room was and practice with The Faction, and then come out and skate. So, we would do both. And I remember in 1981 or 82, I got this cassette tape from my friend Tom Kraholski from the East Coast. And he's like, hey, check out this tape. It's a new band. I think you might like it. And so I put it in. I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. Who is this? And he's like, it's a band called Metallica. Oh. Right? So I bring it home and I put it in the cassette, because we only had a ghetto box, a cassette player to listen to music. So I put the cassette in while we're sessioning, and then Gavin, our singer, was like, dude, what is this? Metal? I'm like, no, it's metal, but it kind of sounds punk, it was rad. And so he would take it out and he would put the Misfits in, right? Yeah. And then I would take the Misfits out and put Metallica in. And I'm like, you know what? since he doesn't like Metallica, I'm not gonna like the Misfits. Like, you know, but
Wow.
you know, it kind of backfired on me because the Misfits is so catchy. It's like, how could I not like the Misfits? You know, and it's so funny because the bass player from Metallica would always wear a Misfits T-shirt.
And you do
You
in
know?
the movie? Is it you in the movie, the animal?
Yeah,
You were,
Animal Chin.
yeah,
Yeah.
great.
So I tried to hate the Misfits, and I ended up liking them. You know, in spite of Gavin, our singer, and his brother not liking Metallica. You know, and probably still to this day, he probably still doesn't like Metallica.
I'm not a huge fan of Metallica, but I named my cat Metallica.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cute.
she has a
So,
hen. Too.
so secretly, you do have a secret love for Metallica.
Yeah, I love some
You just
songs.
don't want to tell anybody.
I saw a video of you hanging out with James Hetfield,
Yeah.
showing you were showing each other like your collection and stuff and cars and like it's
Yeah, I went to his their practice place, and he showed me his few of his cars.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing that Vans Shoes lined up because they did a collaboration with Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
In turn, I got to do a collaboration with Metallica with my signature shoe, the Half Cab, and so that was an amazing time, and I got to meet those guys and become friends with them. And I actually I brought my whole Metallica collection that I have records that I collected in the early 80s of all these bootlegs from Europe, you know, in Japan. And I brought them, and I got to show Lars, their drummer, my whole Metallica collection. That a bunch of metalheads would be jealous of the records that I have.
They're probably jealous of your vintage boards collection too.
That too.
Nice.
I've
so,
sold off most of them though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I have other interests. Like I like vintage motorcycles as well. So to help build motorcycles and help collect them, I ended up selling some of my skateboard collection that I saved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now I have a Harley Davidson in my living room because of the decks that I had stored in the closet are now owned by a collector. And then I have a 1944 Harley Davidson in my living room.
Oh, I like to talk with people who have like many passions and hobbies and interests. It's always super interesting.
Yeah, my life's definitely not boring.
Exactly.
There's always something to do.
Have something. Yeah. We have an expression in French saying, I don't put all my eggs in the same basket. Do you have this?
Yep. Same thing. Yeah.
So
we always say that. Yeah.
Fun to have many different passions.
For sure. Yeah. Because you never know. The saying is, don't put all your eggs in one basket because you never know what's going to happen with that basket. You know, you may need to put an egg over here or over here. So I like to spread myself out as far as my interests, because then what I've learned with that as well, you make new friends and new relationships through those different interests, which in turn, it always kind of, for some reason, always comes back to skateboarding. You know, everybody that I know in motocross, motorcycles, hot rods, music, art, snowboarding, surfing, mountain biking, they all, skateboarding, punk rock, you know, they all been touched by skateboarding in some way or another, you know. And so that's my connection with them.
I tried to skateboard once and I fell on my shoulder, and it wasn't broken, but there was a scratch on my bone. So I never, never tried again. And I was like, oh, I wish I could.
Yeah, it's skateboarding is a very dangerous sport, and it's one of those things like you either are able to suffer through the pain of learning or not. And you know, and that's what divides and also separates some people who become athletes and you know, kind of daredevils and stunt people who are taking risks, to the people who don't want to take that risk, or you know. And so to each his own. I mean, everyone has a different temperament, everyone has their own passions in life, their own reasons why they live. You know, for me, I love challenges, and I'm willing to take risks to meet those challenges, you know. And that's why I revolve myself around a lot of very dangerous activities, because with that comes excitement as
Exactly.
well.
The
You know,
adrenaline, the
the adrenaline.
adrenaline,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so by participating in those things, it really teaches you how to become courageous and overcome a fear.
Yeah.
And I know that fear drives a lot of people in this world, which keeps them from doing very amazing things that they never discovered what they're capable of. And for me, I'm willing to take that risk to be able to enjoy these passions in my life, you know. So it's very important to learn.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot through skateboarding, and I adapt that to everything in my life. It's learning how to fail to succeed, you know, and I'm willing to suffer through the failures to be successful at anything that I do.
Wow. So true.
Yo, yeah. My dog is playing with my son right now, and he's riling him up.
That sounds fun. So, I want to talk about Urethane, the band. I love the album you released last year, Chasing Horizons. So you talk a little about how the band was formed, but talk to me about your bandmates.
Well, the first bandmate that I met was their singer, songwriter, guitar player. And he's the one that reached out to me, and because he knew that I was looking for a singer for a band. Mm-hmm. And so he sent me a demo tape. I listened to it. I really enjoyed it. Played it to the other band that I was in, and they just weren't having it. They were just like, yeah, you're not interested, you know? So I made that conscious decision to leave that band and just focus on what Tim was doing. And basically when I met Tim, he was already in the process of releasing a single, like a solo record, EP with 5 songs. He even had a music video and everything all lined up, ready to go, like pretty much a week or two prior to I met him. And I gave him the decision. I said, hey, you know what? You could either put that stuff out right now because you're ready, or we can join forces together and start a band and do this together. Wow. And he decided to put that project to the side and form this band. And so he found a drummer really quick, and his name is Dylan Wade, who I had no clue or didn't know who he was. And he had played previously in a band called the Bomb Pops.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the very first drummer in that band. And you know, I didn't even know who the Bomb Pops were because they just never came into the scene that I was in and at that time. So I discovered them through him. And so we practiced together, and it worked out really well. And I was playing bass at the time. So it was just guitar, singer, bass player, drummer. And then 4 months into the band, I just had this wild idea of like, you know, I want to go back to guitar playing, because my love, my passion is guitar playing. And the only reason why I played bass.
Yeah, and in the past, you decided to stop playing bass for guitar, so you kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, bass has always been fun to play for me as well, but I just have this really special love for guitar, the sound and the tones that you can make. Mm-hmm. So I asked Tim. I said, "Hey Tim, what do you think about me playing second rhythm guitar for the band?" He said, "Oh, that's perfect, because I have a friend named Chad who wants to play bass for us." And so when Chad joined the band, it all worked out really well. It sounded really full. It was a great sound. And then about a week later, Chad came to the table with a record deal through Cybertrax Records because of his relationship with Jen and El Jefe from NoFX.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because he knew them, because Chad was a singer for a band called Skipjack, who have been playing in the San Diego scene for many, many years. And Tim, our singer, also played for a punk band called War Fever. So all the band guys that I joined with all had previous bands. And Tim, our singer, actually left War Fever to do the solo project with us too. So there was a lot of changes going on. And I just think that, you know, everyone was making a conscious choice of decisions that led us to have this band and have this record deal and have all these shows. and everything's just kind of snowballed really quickly. And the one thing that I learned in this band is I had to get to know these guys in the process of learning the songs. I had to get to know these guys personally. I didn't know them at all, you know,
Yeah.
so we had to make relationships, and I had to learn how to speak to them, you know, on a level where, you know, we all respected each other, you know, in a creative way and also in a friendship way as well.
Wow. So true. You have to get to know them and know all the little ego ego fragilities of everyone.
Oh
So you
yeah.
know how to manage. And I don't say that in a negative way, but I mean it's
Well, a person's personality can make or break a band,
totally.
you know. Yeah, so you definitely have to deal with different personalities, and I felt like, you know, getting to get know these guys and work with them, I felt like, man, this is a good group of guys. They're very positive, they're very hardworking, they're very creative, they're talented, and they don't have any hangups. So it was just a very good formula to form something really quick and have a great produce a great product, a great musical product in such a short time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it worked out. It's still working out. I'm still getting to know these guys. We're starting to tour now. We're going over to Europe next month to do some Amfest, Rack Rock, and play some shows in Germany and Switzerland. And so we're excited. You know, this is going to be a new adventure for us, and we're just going to see where it goes. You know, obviously I've had musical careers my whole life, but this is definitely the biggest one and the one that's the most promising, that I feel like I can take that to the next level, you know? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're gonna play also Punk in the Park, or you did already? Is it past? No, it's
No, that's coming up.
yeah.
Punk in the Park is coming up, and I believe that is coming up after, I
Yes.
believe after we come back from Europe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't check the exact.
Yeah, that's in November, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great festival.
yeah.
So, and
I'm excited.
I really like the album. It's your debut album, so it's like the first
Yeah,
one. I like it because I find like the mid-90s vibe, the skate punk mid-90s.
yeah,
A lot of songs are fast. It's always super melodic. I even
yeah.
remind a little of Tony Sly in the vocals sometimes.
Oh, wow, wow.
Not necessarily the voice itself, but the sense of the melody.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of like Propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Green Day, a
Yeah.
little bit, Alkaline Trio.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's like for me, I hear a lot of Tony Sly and Matt Skiba.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, no use for a name.
Yeah.
So yeah, and those are bands that we all like, and we are all influenced and enjoy. So and maybe and I think that's why I kind of was attracted to Tim and his lyrical, his voice and the way he wrote and the songs he wrote, because that's the kind of that whole Warped Tour area, the early 90s, is I fell in love with all those bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this surge in the 80s of all these hardcore punk rock bands, to the point where in the 90s when it got really melodic, you know, I really, really fell in love with that, because I felt like that was just another transition of making punk rock more enjoyable and
Exactly.
more something that you could sing along with and hum and harmonize with, you know. And I feel like it's very pleasing, you know, and even though it's got a core sound to it, it's enjoyable, you know, sound, you know, and you can
Yeah.
hear what the singer is singing, you know. So in early bands like the Descendants, Bad Religion, Social Distortion, you know, those bands were very melodic as well to me, as you know. So those were a different style versus like a band like 7 Seconds or you know, Minor Threat. But you know, even like the Misfits were melodic in a way of their
Yeah.
backing vocals, you know, of the something you could sing along with, you know. And so yeah, even like Youth Brigade, a band like Youth Brigade,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that, and that's what attracted me to the band. So, and that style of music. So, and then we signed with a label called Cybertracks for Urethane and Chasing Horizons. And in turn, we got to work with a great, producer named Cameron Webb, which in turn have done a lot of great albums. I've never worked with a producer before, so I didn't really understand that way of making a record. I always went into the studio with the band. We produced ourselves with their engineer, and that was it. Yeah, I never had the money to like pay for an actual producer that's gonna help you write this record and tell you like, hey, you need to play that over. I'm like, why do I, like, Cameron, why do I need to play that over? He's like, I heard you bend the note. I'm like, are you serious? You heard me bend the note? Yeah, it went out of tune just slightly. I'm like, okay, if you hear that, I don't hear it, I'll play it again, and he'd be like, okay, play that part over. I go, why? He's like, you could play it way better. I know you can do it with more energy. I'm like, okay, dude. And so it's like, he did that to all of us. I felt bad for our singer, Tim, because like, sing it again, sing it again, sing it again. No, do it this way.
It happens.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And, I had never been into the studio for 3 weeks before. I never spent that much time on an album. The longest I ever spent on a full album was 3 days.
Wow.
Get in there, record everything, do the overlays, the punch-ins, and then mix the last day, and that's it, So.
So I think it's unbelievable for you as for this experience, because it's like if you start a total new field, but you've been a musician for a long time, but it's like if you still have the chance to experiment things for the first time as a musician, even if you have a huge skateboard career. You know what I mean?
Well, for sure, because I started my music career in 1982, and I've been playing music my whole life. So I have that experience. It's not like I just got in a band and all of a sudden we're
first time working with a producer. You said
the
first time you have a bigger band or something, or if I can say that, are you?
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
I never dealt with a booking agent.
Yeah, exactly.
Never dealt with a publicist. Never got to be able to fill out a rider and have stuff backstage waiting for us,
So it's fun that you can still have those like we said, a little adrenaline and new experience. I think it's rad.
No, it's been an amazing journey for all of us, and like I said, all the guys in the bands, they've all had experience too as well, and so a lot of the stuff is new to them, even though they've been playing music for a long time. I think they're enjoying it just as much as I am, and so we'll see how far it goes. We're working on a new record as well as we speak.
Oh, wow.
Because we have another company that's already interested in putting out a record for us, so we're excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited too, for sure. You have on the previous album, the first album, you have a nice guest, Jim Lindberg, Toby Morse. It's great.
Yes. Yeah, those were just ideas I brought to the table. I said, hey, let's try to do something interesting for the album. Let's invite some friends to participate in the band. So then we could actually use that as a promotional tool to help get the band to the next level. So Toby was an easy one from H2O because I had been a guest on one of his last albums. I played guitar and recorded a rhythm track and recorded the lead in his song called Skate. And I also did a music video for him as well. So that was easy.
On his podcast. You were his guest for his podcast. I didn't have
right. So
but I saw that I love it.
Well, he owed me. So I was like, there's no way that he could say no, So I asked Toby, I said, hey, Toby, would you mind singing on one of our songs? And then so that was one. And then the other one was like, our producer, Cameron Webb, is really good friends with Jim from Pennywise because they've recorded a lot of albums there. I've known Jim for many years from just being on the Warped Tour and actually playing bass or playing guitar with them on stage. And then I've been recently doing some art shows with him with Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. And so I've been in connection with Jim for a while. And then I just reached out to him one time and we said, hey, Jim, what do you think about singing on one of our songs? You know, so we let him hear some of the stuff and then he picked the one that he wanted to sing on.
Oh,
and so great. So he never came into the studio. He did it at his own studio. And then he sent the vocal tracks to Cameron at Cameron's studio at Maple Studios. And then Cameron kind of mixed it and engineered it into the song. But he nailed it. He did a great job. And we actually ended up filming a music video at one of our shows with Pennywise for that song Inheritance as well. So it was rad too, because it's like we were playing with Pennywise, the album's already out, and we're like, hey, Jim, do you mind coming on stage and singing that song with us, you know? And he's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So they were like, oh, we got to film this. We got to film this whole show. So we got a film producer to come and film the whole show, and he made a music video out of the whole thing as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah, great collabs. It's fun. Oh.
Yeah.
So, are you gonna make some urethane skateboards, like the boards?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, we've been thinking about that because we've been playing a lot of shows where we have a merch table and then we have some bands next to us that they have skateboards with their name on. I'm like, oh man, you know, we should have a urethane one as well.
Yeah, I think you need to.
Yeah, so that we're in the process of doing that. It's been taking a while because of the whole COVID thing and how slow production is. So we've been working on that, but we also been working on actual a skateboard wheel as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so I write for a skateboard company called Bones Wheels, and I've been writing for them since I started skating. So I asked them if they would able to make a wheel with the band. They said, yeah. So we're working on that right now as well. And so the name of the band is called Urethane, and it's based off a skateboard wheel, you know, because skateboard wheels are made out of urethane.
Yeah.
You know, before urethane was produced in 1973, the only type of material used for skateboarding was either rubber, plastic, clay, or steel wheels. So in the 60s, early 60s, the earliest skateboard had steel wheels like roller skate. Remember the old roller skate wheels with the steel wheels? Then they went to clay. And then from clay, they went to plastic or rubber wheels, but they never had urethane until the 70s.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So that's when skateboarding kind of took another turn in a different direction of how you could maneuver a skateboard because of the way it gripped on the cement. It wasn't as dangerous because with clay and steel, it's so slippery. You know, there's no gription there. But with the urethane and how it grips to concrete, it changed the whole way skateboarders rode a skateboard and what we were capable of doing.
Nice.
So, you know, I've been riding urethane wheels for my whole career, you know, and I just thought, you know, when we were thinking of a name of a band, I'm like, man, so difficult to come up with a name because every band name has been used.
I know.
You know, so it's like, are we going to have to make up a word or, you know, how are we going to find a name for this band? And I remember years ago, I was doing the solo project about 10 years ago, and I wrote this thing in my notebook that said urethane. And I'm like, and this was 10 years ago. And I'm like, I found that notebook and I'm like, I wonder if anyone has ever used the name urethane, right? So I typed it up, you know, and I looked up all the band names and like, dude, no one has used this name. Let's use it. Let's use urethane because it relates to skateboarding and we all skate in the band. So it worked out perfectly.
It's like the universe sent that name to you.
I don't know how it it just worked out. It worked out. So it's a fun name, and yeah. So we're stoked that we're able to use that, and
Once
yeah,
again, two of your passion melting together.
exactly,
I love that.
exactly.
Okay, are you ready for some of the listeners' questions?
Of course.
We're gonna. There's a lot of different topics. Really, most are related to skateboard, but
Yeah.
what's the secret to stay healthy in all those skateboard years? How are your knees? Did you recover from all injuries? So let's talk about health and the
Okay.
health.
Well, my knees are great.
Hmm.
I don't have no problems with my knees, and I'm 57 years old, and I've been skating since I was 12. And I think the reason for that is because I've always wore pads, so
Mm.
I didn't have a lot of knee injuries because of the knee pads, and the elbow pads and the helmet. When I went into street skating, you don't really wear pads, but then when you're bailing on street skating, you kind of do a tuck and roll, you know. You don't really fall on your knees,
Yeah.
but a lot of rolled ankles in street skating, because when your board leaves your feet and you try to put your feet back on your board, that's a chance of slipping off the side and rolling your ankle or stepping wrong. So I suffered a lot of rolled ankles in the mid 90s. Knees are great because, like I said, wearing the pads my whole
Yeah.
life,
A lot of
and
protection move you can do.
a lot of protection. My wrists have been, well taken care of. When I first started skating, I wore wrist guards. When I was a kid, into my pro career, I still had wrist guards on. So I saved my wrist many times. But I want to say what's helped me in my longevity of my career is basically taking very calculated risks and not always going for it.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place to, like, I'm going to go for it and I'm not going to go for it. So if people have watched me skate, they watch how I pick apart a trick and how I learn it. I do it in baby steps where I don't take a lot of chances, and I don't actually try to make it until I know I can make it for sure and make it smooth. So that's why that kind of revolves around how I look skateboarding. So when people watch me and they say, "Oh man, you look so smooth skateboarding," well, you didn't see all the tries and the bails I did before I landed it. So I won't land something until I know it's gonna feel nice and look nice and feel perfect without being sketched out. And so I have adapted that as my style of skating. So when it looks more fluid, because I had a lot of patience and took a lot of time to perfect the trick before I actually ended up trying to make the trick.
It's a lot of
You know.
planning and analyzing that I didn't know you at this
Oh,
point.
it is so mental. You have no idea
Mental.
how mental skateboarding is and how fear can get in the way of your progression of the sport. So sometimes you have to kind of push fear to the side and take that chance of, like, you know what, I'm going for it. And then you have the opportunity of falling super hard and getting hurt or making it clean.
Yeah.
So that's the choice that you have to make. And I want to say another thing that's kept me really healthy as far as is just doing skateboarding, exercising every day and doing it. And kind of staying away from things that hinder you from skating. Like, I tried drinking once in skating, that didn't work out. So I never did that ever. I
Yeah.
tried smoking pot one time and getting stoned and skating, and that didn't work out, because I
Uh-huh.
was paranoid of, like, so I never mixed drugs and alcohol with the performance of skateboarding,
That's a
you
really
know.
good move.
Yeah.
Good.
There's always a time to party and have a good time, after, but I never let those things take control of me. And I was never addicted to any of these substances. I could have, just like a lot of skateboarders
Yeah.
have in the past. They got really famous, they made a lot of money, they were curious about a certain drug or alcohol beverage, and it consumed them, which then that became their focus, and the skateboarding didn't anymore.
Exactly.
You know,
Sometimes it's because of
so
pressure. I know it happens to a lot of musicians too. Yeah,
yes,
many reasons.
yes, and you know, and I think I feel like drugs and alcohol kind of take you away from that insecure fear that we all face every day when we wake up and we have to look at somebody and then deal with them judging you. You know, everyone judges everybody, everyone criticizes everybody, but then, you know, what can I do to deal with this judgment and this criticism? I'm going to get stoned, or I'm going to drink, you know? And
Yeah.
then I don't care what they throw at me because I'm in another world right now.
Yeah, and even if you
You
drink
know,
or use drugs, it's still there. So you're just postponing the feeling of, I don't know, feeling judged or something. So it's just
it's the insecurity.
yeah,
I want to say it's the anxiety, and it's the insecurity of what people think of you. You know, and once you can get past that without a substance, you're that much further advanced than the next person. You know,
yeah.
and you know, it's just a personality trait that we grow up depending on how we're brought up in a family, how our parents treat us, how our friends treat us, how our relatives treat us, how they support you, how they look at you, how they lift you up, you know, how they tell you how amazing you are, how special you are.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a certain environment to mold a person so they don't have to resort to drugs and alcohol to deal with their anxiety, you know, or the pressures of life. And life's all about pressure and suffering, and you know, we have to go through that because that's what teaches us how to enjoy and appreciate what we have when we know we have to work super hard for something, and we have to take chances, and we also have to prioritize what we're into, you know, what we're doing. And you know, it just makes you appreciate the great things in life. So you know, I feel like a lot of people avoid that, you know, and they never really get to live a fulfilled life of what they're capable of as a human being, you know. And to me, that, you know, I feel bummed out about that people don't get to live their life to the fullest, you know.
Yeah.
So they don't
And
get to enjoy it.
some people seem to have everything, like the best career, the best success, and they still feel a void inside. So,
Yeah, and I
mm,
have my thoughts and views and, you know, reasons for that. If you want to hear,
yeah,
I don't know if you want to hear it, but
sure.
um, that is because they're trying to fill their life with anything possible to help fulfill them and make them feel loved, you know, and appreciated for who they are. And I feel like, you know, I'm a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. And until I became a Christian, I realized that I had everything except I didn't have like a godly figure in my life.
The
I didn't
spiritual.
have this.
Hmm.
What's that?
I said the spiritual
I
sphere.
didn't have a, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have a spiritual way of life or anything, any spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
So I learned that God is always tugging in our hearts to be a part of our life, to fulfill it, because we in this people in this world will push God away because they want to fill their life with everything else. They want to fill their life with money, fame, um, notoriety, a relationship, a job, status, career. And at the end of the day,
Mm.
most people who commit suicide, who have all that, don't have a godly life and don't have any spirituality and don't have that void that's empty. And what my sister-in-law once told me, like, you know, you're not 100% person. There's something missing in your life, that's going to fulfill you and make you happy. And I go, what's that? She goes, you don't have God in your life. And I'm like, oh, really? I don't have God in my life. Okay, well, I'll put God in my life and see what happens, you know? And that was in 2005. You know, she's like, you need Jesus in your life. And I said, okay, well, then I'll follow that and see what happens. And, you know, I haven't looked back, you know, because having that spirituality has taught me a lot about who I am, what's important, and all the things that I have. Now that I have this relationship with God, these things that I've accomplished and all these things and these, like, it's really doesn't really matter. You know, at the end, when we die, we're not taking any of this with us. And it's funny because I read this thing where it's like, this guy was saying, like, to his classroom, it's like, how many of you guys remember who your great-great-grandfather is? Yeah. And they're like, who? They're like, your great-great-grandfather. Because
I had this thought recently, like, because I don't have kids, and I'm like,
yeah.
And like 10 years after I'm dead, like, nobody will remember me. But I don't, for me, it's not I don't care. I don't have any bad emotions about that. But
yeah. But people want to do things to be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
They want to accomplish amazing things to be, because it's this thing about this living a life that's immortal. Like, people don't want to die. They're afraid of dying, you know? So they want to try to live as long as they can. And if they're not going to live this long, they want to do something that keeps lasting till they're gone. And it's like, you know, my kids are going to have kids, and then their kids are going to have kids. And then really, they're not even going to remember who I am, you know, unless they go to a store and maybe there's a Vans shoe and they're like, oh, that was my great grandmother.
Yeah. Or they're
gonna, you know, or they go to
they're gonna watch old movies. It's like an movie.
Yeah. And they'll, like, you know, they'll walk into a skateboard shop and be like, wait, I think that was my great grandfather's professional board, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, I understand that spirituality, faith can help filling this void we can have at some point, or any kind of, for me, my spirit, because I don't believe I'm not like into religion, but like, I love to learn about the universe and like all that's beyond us in the universe, and I feel like it's feeling this need, like, you know, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
We all have
it for me.
We all have it. That's why there's scientists, you know, and that's why there's NASA, and that's why there's always people trying to discover what else is there besides the earth. There has to be something else.
Exactly. So I relate to this part of the topic.
No, and it's great, because I feel like God created us in that way to be curious and to ask questions and to know where we came from, to know what our origins are, to know why we're here, and to know what's going to happen after. It's very important, you know, and once you understand that, your life changes the way you live now, you know, because people don't live with a care at all. I know I didn't, you know, before I became a Christian, I didn't care where I came from or where I was going, you know, but now I do. And then now I look at life differently. So like a lot of views and opinions that I had before I became a Christian have changed, because God's changed my heart, which in turn has changed my way of thinking and how I appreciate life, how I appreciate other people, and how I treat them, you know, because we will grow up a certain way of how our parents brought us up and what we see on TV, and we'll determine how we should live and how we should treat people based on what is being taught to us, you know? So people get taught really negative things, but it's normal to them, you know? And then later they find out, why did I even like act like that, when that's not really right? You know, something is telling me that that's not right, you know? So it takes a while to get rid of these personality traits that we grow up with. It's like unlearning what we've learned, you know, and sometimes it takes a spiritual awakening to be like, hey, you know, you're not living correctly, because I feel like human beings are very short-sighted. You know, we're not able to see the future because it's impossible, you know, because we just look at the day, we look at right now. So
Unless
whatever
we
we're
find,
drinking,
unless we can find a way to time travel, there are some theories about that, but yeah.
yeah. Well, whatever we're consuming, whatever we're watching, whatever we're doing, we can't see the effects of that because we're not time travelers. We're not like, we can't prophesize like or see the future. So these things that we're doing to our bodies, they take time before they damage them in a way where you see like the effects of these little things that we do. And then later on, 10, 20 years later, I'm like, oh my goodness, now look where I'm at because of all these things I did. What I love about scripture and what I love about the Bible is there's lots of stories of the way people lived, and this is the way they ended up, you know? So when I look at that and I read those things, I apply those things to my own life, and I say like, well, there's the prophecy, there's the future. All the things that we're dealing with right now, people have dealt with them in the past. It's called history. And when people don't learn from history and learn from the past, it affects the future. So what I love about scripture and I love about the way that God is teaching us how to love people, it's helped me live my life now. So later on, I'm not affected in a negative way, you know?
I feel like it helped you having a balance in your life between like all your, I would say, crazy projects, like crazy life, like a lot of fame even. And then I don't know, I feel like it brought you a nice balance.
Well, like I said, like I didn't grow up in a religious or godly home. So I lived in the world that way my whole life. And then I didn't become a Christian till like 40, you know? So I have experience of living outside of God's protection versus not even dealing with that and learning and understanding that way of life versus someone who's brought up in the church and have never experienced the world outside of it. They're curious, you know, they're like, hey, I'm a pastor's son or whatever. And, you know, I was brought up in this religious home or godly home. And I want to go play with these guys. Like, I want to do what they're doing, you know? So there are people who have been brought up in this home and then they leave and let's go play around and see what happens over here. But 9 out of 10 times, these people will resort back to here because they know that this is a safe zone, you know? And so I was out of the safe zone for many years. So, you know, now I have this perception and of way of life, which I know that where this life can lead, I want to stay with this life because this is more beneficial for me, you know, and it'll be more beneficial for the people around me as well. So that's why it's easy for me to stay here because I've already experienced my life outside of God, if that makes more sense. But then, you know, I can still be a skateboarder. I can still listen to punk rock. You know, I can still build cars, ride motorcycles. I mean, I still live in my life, but I just have a different perspective of how to love people and how to treat people, you know. Now, do I always listen to the way I'm supposed to be? No, because I'm human and there's always a tug saying like, you know, live this way, but don't live this way. You know, it's very enticing it's like so I have kids. And so this is a perfect example. I love my kids. I want the best for my kids. I give them the best advice I can because of my experience. Now, do they want to listen to me?
Another story. But you do your job.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I don't blame them because they're their own person. They're their own free will. That means they are able to make choices no matter how I brought them up and how I give them rules and regulations and ways of life. And this is the way you should live. they have a choice whether they want to follow that or not, you know? And so that's how that's how I relate my relationship with God. God's just trying to protect me, protect the creation by saying, hey, I want you to live this way because I'm trying to protect you from your own destruction. Mm-hmm. Because we're our own worst enemies, you know? We think we know a lot more than we do, you know, and we're not very smart sometimes, you know? So, so that's how I can relate my relationship to God for my relationship with my kids is like, I want the best for life for my kids, but they're their own person and they're going to choose whatever they want. Yeah. So they're going to remember my words and be like, when they get to a place where like, man, I should have listened to dad. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing with scripture and with Jesus coming. It's like, he just wants to show you the way to protect yourself in the most loving, humble, and way, you know, and there's a lot of things that can steer us off to the wrong direction, you know. So
oh, nice. So
that's my that's my spiritual rant.
Fine.
But
I think it's interesting because I don't believe, but I'm always curious, and it's you bring it in a very interesting way. But I have other questions. Well, yeah, sure. Sorry.
Well, I want to do when I bring spirituality into like podcasts and interviews, I want to do it into a way that's inviting, you know, and understanding versus like you should be like this.
No, yeah,
you know, because I don't want to be that Christian that that pushed people away, you know, because there was a bunch of Christians that pushed me away, you know, by their approach. You know, so I want to do it in a more I like to do it in a more loving, logical way to make you think, you know, of like, oh, I never thought of it that way. You know, I just want to come off as a normal person who loves Jesus.
Yeah. Good. I have other questions. I love this one because there's a lot of questions you probably like answered 10,000 times and people can find the information, but I love the question about skateboard related to how you feel. And I have an interesting one. Like, what was your reaction when you first saw the skate ramp for the movie Animal Chin compared to when you saw it again? Like, I think you celebrated 30 years. So
yeah.
What was the difference between the two feelings when you saw that? I think it's
well, shoot. When I first saw it the first time, that was in 1986, and I was in my early 20s. But it was something that we had dreamt of, that we created on paper, and then when it was time to film, I wasn't there for the building of it because I lived in Northern California. They built it here, actually close to where I live now, in Southern California. So when I got to see it for the first time, it was already built. You know, Mike McGill and Lance Mountain were part of the building crew, so they got to see the thing develop. And I think me and Tony and Tommy showed up after it was already done, and we just thought it was the most amazing thing. We couldn't wait to get on there and start skating and get used to it. And we basically were learning the ramp and learning what we could do on it while we were filming for those 3 days. You know, so it was a great experience. And Stacy just kept the camera rolling when we kept, hey, I want to try this, or I want to work on this section. I want to work on this section. And then he would just film all of us. And then like 30 years later, we had this idea of, well, actually Grant Britton, the photographer that shot the original quadruple hand plants on the ramp, on the spine ramp, had this idea, hey, we should recreate that photo. That would be sick to do it because we're still skateboarding.
It's amazing.
But we need a place to do it. Like, so how are we going to rebuild the chin ramp again? So I think Tony had reached out to Woodward and asked and see if we could build the ramp there, and so we could recreate that, you know, amazing photograph. And I don't know if you can see in the background, there's a diorama of the ramp.
I see this.
That my friend made, and then the two photos The one on top is original, and the one on the
The
bottom,
original. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. So
Yeah,
emotional.
so that's funny that you talk about. They're right there.
I couldn't see the upper one, but the sun was reflecting on the second. But now
Oh yeah,
I see the colors. The
yeah.
shape.
Let's closer.
Yeah.
There's the ramp.
Ah!
So
Wow.
that's a diorama, a little model of the chin ramp.
Yeah.
And then here are the two photographs. The one on top is original, and then the one at the bottom. I
Ah,
don't know if you can
that's
see that.
rad. Such a great memory.
Yeah.
Wow. And a lot of people ask if you have a close relationship with the other guys. Are you like friends? Do you hang out? Or you just like professionally related?
Um, I've always had, you know, a pretty close relationship with Lance Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though we lived 7 hours away from each other, we always hung out together in the early '80s. But now that I moved down here in Carlsbad in Southern California, I'm really close to Mike McGill and very, very close to Tony Hawk. And I see those guys all the time and skate with them, and our families hang out.
Nice.
Yeah, so, you know, I always go to a lot of parties at Tony's house. Either it's a Christmas party, Halloween, 4th of July. And I hung out with McGill all the time because we both ride moto.
Mm-hmm.
And we skate together, and he's got a lake house that we go and visit. And yeah, so I'm a lot closer to McGill and Hawk now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, where I live, and actually hang out much more than in the '80s. We didn't really hang out too much in the '80s. It looked like it because of the magazines and the contests and the videos, but we were all from different parts of the country, you know.
Okay.
I was Northern California. McGill was Florida. Lance was LA, and Tony was San Diego. You know.
Good. Two last questions. I love this.
Yeah.
What do you think of the effect of like how do you say marketing and commercialization of the
Yeah.
skateboards? Because do you feel at some point the street spirit of the skateboard was lost somewhere, or you can still find it even if it's started to I don't know how to express this in English, but like you know what I mean, like sponsorship and like do you still feel the street spirit of skateboarding?
I do. What I love about skateboarding is it's what you make of it. You know, everyone could pick up a skateboard for different reasons. Either they are taking it to go to the store or down the street, go visit a friend, so transportation. They use it for maybe street skating. You know, just kind of like the environment that you're in. Try to ride whatever you know as an artist, whatever you know. Challenge yourself to the environment that you're in. To going to a skate park where there's actually stuff made for skateboarding. There's skaters that like to create tricks and then take photographs and video of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's skaters that take these tricks and they perfect them so they can do them in a competition. So there's competitive skaters, there's artistic skaters, there's people that just ride it for transportation. It's what you make of it, you know. So not every skateboarder is the same. We're all uniquely different in the way we view skateboarding, and you shouldn't, like I said, put your eggs all in one basket, you know, and just try to put yourself in a box and say this is the type of skateboarder that I am, because there's so many facets and opportunities that you can use a skateboard for.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just choose to focus on one area of skateboarding. For me, I focus on all of it. You know, I think there's great enjoyment any way that I could express myself on a skateboard, whether it's just riding down the street, filming a video part, shooting photos, or being competitive. And I love the competitive part because it helps you progress to the another level, to be like, oh, I want to learn this trick, but I want to push it to the next level so I can stand out, so I can place higher in the contest, maybe get a photo in the magazine, get a prize, So I was brought up in competition. So as competition, that's something I strive for, and it helps me grow as a skateboarder. And in turn, there's been outside companies being attracted to skateboarding when it's very popular, where they want to dump money into it to help promote them and help promote the sport, and then they leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine with me. If people want to put money into our sport, I don't care if you're a drink sponsor or you're a clothing company or whatnot. As long as you're supporting skateboarding, and that's fine with me, and you're helping people make careers and lives, professions out of it, yeah, that's fine.
We have this.
So I was never. What's that?
Oh, I was about to say that it's the same question we have with bands going on major labels and like the huge music industry. I think it's similar. Like, yeah.
It is similar.
Mm.
It is similar because I was never against the X Games. I was never against Dew Tour. I was never against the Olympics, because it just gives skateboarding a platform to grow, and for people for it to be exposed to people who have never seen it before in different countries, and get people really interested and excited about it. So, and that in turn goes in the same thing with music and punk rock. And like, if you have a band that's really small and they get signed by a major label and then they become radio stars and they become super popular, that is not a reason to not like the band.
Exactly.
I
agree with that.
Because a lot of people like to use the word sellout because they think like being successful and making a lot of money, the band I once liked when they were really small, they sold out to this bigger company. It's not that they sold out. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that they're being successful now. In turn, I think the people who supported the band are the people who are selling out on the band, because it's like, now you're not supporting them because you supported them in a selfish way. You found this band that nobody knew who they were, and you grabbed them and this is my band. And then now my neighbor likes this band. I don't want to share this band with you. And then that neighbor likes this band. I'm not sharing this band with you either. Yeah. And then now everybody likes this band. Well, now if everybody likes this band, I don't like this band anymore.
Reminds me because everybody. Song. It reminds me the Lagwagon song "Know It All." It talks exactly about that. So and it's make the band. It doesn't make the little garage band non-legitimate.
Exactly. So the people calling the bands their sellouts for becoming famous and successful, it's the fan that's being the sellout, but in that term, in the word sellout, the proper definition for the word sellout is actually doing something that you do not support or not into for money,
or you're not attentive with it.
Yeah. So like there can be opportunities or situations where maybe there's a band or there's maybe a skateboarder or somebody that says, I'm so against this, but how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like this now. That's a sellout.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's the true meaning of a sellout. It's like, you're only doing this because there's money involved, but back then you were like against that, but now that you're going to get rich and famous off of it, you want to be a part of that,
Mm-hmm. The nuance is important. And last question. Okay. I love this one. Have you ever had some very funny or weird collaboration offers, or like movies appearance, or like Jackass stuff that you didn't do it because it was too weird?
Too weird. Yeah. Well, as an artist, I had a liquor company. I think a Jack Daniel's liquor company approached me and wanted me to design a bottle for them. And I don't really drink you
Yeah.
know, like that. I don't drink that a hard alcohol like that. So I just kind of felt weird about even trying to take that job offer, and I turned it down because I don't drink the stuff,
And you're
and
not a
I want to
sellout.
support. Exactly. So I turned down the money. I turned down the opportunity to draw a graphic for a Jack Daniels, type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
hard liquor, So in that sense, yeah, I didn't sell out, for the money. I rather pass the money,
yeah.
away for that.
And for skateboard, do you remember having like offers like that or like project suggestions?
Um, you know what? I have not, but I have thought about that. I don't drink energy drinks. So
Mm-hmm.
if any one of those drink companies like Monster, Rockstar,
Mm-hmm.
Red Bull ever approached me and said, "Hey, we want to pay you $1 million to ride for a company," I would say no.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would
Yeah,
turn it down.
good. Thank you so much, Steve. That was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. So, let me know about Urethane. I wish you could play in Quebec City eventually, in Quebec and Canada. So it could be great to see you
Yeah,
play.
we're working on that. We're working on trying to get over the border and play Canada. So that's
Hey,
probably our next step. We're on our way.
I'll be there for sure. And I really love the album. I can't wait to hear the new one you're working on these days. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for being my
I
guest.
appreciate it.
Have a great day. You're
All
very
right.
busy, so thanks for taking the time. Have a great day in California.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Bye.
ciao.
That was
Thank you.
fun. Have a great week. Morning. It's still the morning for you.
Yeah, it's 10:20.
Yeah, it's
I'm
one.
actually going to a skateboard competition today.
Wow. I'm going to work on my this week episode and maybe have some sun
Yeah,
outside, a walk, nice walk. So, yeah. Thank you for
awesome.
your
So
time.
yeah, if you want, you send me something and I can post
Yeah,
about it when it airs.
the episode will be released in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm gonna need a picture of you,
Okay.
and if I'm allowed to play 2 songs of yours.
Yeah, no problem.
Good.
Did you want to picture me skating or playing music?
I think skating. Yeah,
Yeah.
skating.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay.
Whatever.
It's whatever you
Send
need.
me
I have
both.
it all. So
Send me
both.
both, and my visual artist will choose depending on what's best for her to work with the design. But both are okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sounds
Good.
good.
Have a great day. Cheers again.
Cheers.
Bye.